Today, let's talk about the seemingly simple but ultimately complex patient refusal. And everyone has the right to refuse treatment and transport from EMS. This refusal may stem from a number of different causes. Could be economic, could be religious. They may not trust you, they may not really understand what's going on, or they may have some substances in their body that may be altering their decision-making process. When it comes to documenting a patient refusal, our ultimate goal is to be as factual as possible and to limit liability. So when we document, we need to prove that our duty to act was in fact fulfilled. The patient had both capacity and competency to refuse treatment and or transport, and that there was some form of informed consent. So those three things we mentioned will need to be documented. There's one of self-determination, the right to refuse. There's one of capacity, my authority to refuse. And there's one of competency, my ability to refuse. Taken each on its own, self-determination, the authority, well, I have a legal right to make my own decisions about my own health care without pressure, without inappropriate influence. This is all defined by consent and my ability to say yes or no. We'll get to that in just a minute. And as EMS providers, we cannot violate the patient's right to this self-determination by acting against their will, even if it may be in their best interest. If they're making an informed decision, can provide informed consent. They have self-determination and can refuse any and all treatment and transport. Well, since I have authority, do I have capacity? And capacity is a legal authority to make my own healthcare decisions. So typically our patients are going to have legal capacity to make their own decisions in that they're typically 18 years or older. In most states, if they're an emancipated minor, they'd have the capacity. Otherwise, when dealing with minors, the parents or the legal guardians will have that capacity. And then finally, there's competency. There's the ability to make those decisions. So I may have the authority to say yes or no, but do I have the competency to do so? So our patient must be fully alert and oriented. So they must have the ability to comprehend whatever is being communicated. They have to be able to understand the benefits of our treatment and further treatment, healthcare treatment. They have to understand the risks involved with refusing any or all of that treatment. And then the ability to make their own decision based on the information we are giving them from our assessment. In instances where we do not have competency, we do not have that criterion met, the patient may be a minor, may be under 18 years old. Patient may be disoriented or altered in some way, some altered level of consciousness. This does not mean that the patient had one beer with dinner an hour ago. That doesn't simply disqualify them just because they have a substance on board. They do have to be actually disoriented, actually altered. Also, suicidal patients, even suicidal ideation, even if no harm has come or nothing physical has manifested, even the statement, the intention to do so, renders one incompetent to make that refusal decision. And then lastly, if your patient is in some sort of protective custody, they do not have the competency to make their own decision. So let's get into informed consent, in which there's an agreement between us as providers and the patient regards to treatment, transports, and refusals. And with informed consent, the patient must be educated fully and clearly on whatever the issue is at hand, the injury, the illness, any treatments that are being proposed. They may be refusing certain treatments, so explaining, fully educating on those treatments, the risks and the benefits of those treatments. There may be risks to receiving the treatment, so clearly and honestly describing those or alongside the risks of refusing it, and then benefits of receiving. So we're clearly articulating risks, benefits, and we are making sure we're communicating with the patient, making sure the patient fully understands their situation. For our refusal documentation, do not in any way, shape, or form at any time attempt to talk the patient out of transport or talk the patient out of going via ambulance instead of going personal vehicle. At no point are we going to talk them out of it. So we're there, it's easy enough. Get them into our truck and initiate transport. So if they want to come with us, they can surely come along with us, but we never talk them out of it. If they are refusing transport or refusing treatments, you can always contact medical control. If you're feeling somewhat uncertain or you need an extra hand in convincing them that going to the hospital is the right decision. So with all this, we're assuring that they're able to make that informed decision, and we have advised them on all the risks of refusing treatment and transport. We are going to document all of this in a very detailed way. So we're going to document exactly what we have told the patient, what their patient's response was, what their level of understanding was in this situation. Always advise them that they can call back. Even the moment you turn their back to them, they can always call back. And make sure we've got the proper signatures, and both from the patient and any witnesses to that refusal. Well, now let's go into some possible scenarios. The patient requests to be treated and transported, and EMS, the healthcare giver, you agree with that? Well, that's a pretty easy decision. You're both on the same page. You're going to provide treatment and transport. So no liability there regarding that transport decision. Everyone's in agreement. We're going to the hospital. In this scenario, instead, the patient wants to be treated and transported to the hospital, but for some reason, the EMS provider disagrees. This can become both very dangerous and carry lots of liability, even if the patient doesn't deteriorate, but especially if the patient deteriorates later on. So in this case, you may disagree that the patient does not need to go to the hospital. The patient might not even require any medical care beyond some first aid. But here it's always safer to transport. We have come all the way out to where this patient is. Why don't you just get in the back of my truck? We'll bring you on down to the hospital. So your disagreement, never talk the patient out of treatment, out of transport to the hospital. Third scenario for you. Here the patient refuses treatment transport and you agree. Seems like a pretty easy decision because you're both on the same page. They don't want to go to the hospital. You don't want to take them to the hospital. You don't think medically, in your professional opinion, your assessment, you don't think they need to go. You all agree. Seems like an easy decision. But we are still taking a risk for patient deterioration down the road, and we still have to assess for that capacity and that competence to refuse while articulating all those risks of refusing further treatment and transport. And this scenario is where the arguments come in. The patient is refusing treatment transport and you disagree. You think they need to be treated, you think they need to be transported. There is something emergent going on perhaps, but the patient is just steadfast, does not want to go to the hospital, does not want to go with you. They still have the authority to refuse. If they are competent, they are alert, they're oriented, they check off all the boxes, they are competent, they may refuse. They have to understand the risks of refusing, understand the benefits of the treatments you can provide, that the hospital can provide. But documentation-wise, we definitely have to ensure that informed consent is met and that the patient has been fully educated, and we've done everything in our power to try to talk them into transport to the hospital. And when fully educating this patient, when advising them of risks and consequences of refusing our treatment and transport, avoid jargony language. Saying things like an elevated ST segment. They're not going to know what that means. Even if you say you're having a myocardial infarction, they're probably not going to know what that means. So put it in layman's terms, say you're having a major heart attack. Looks like you're having a major heart attack. You could die from this. These are not lies. These are not exaggerations. If we see a STEMI, we can certainly tell them that it looks as though they're having a serious heart attack that they could die of at any moment. And by using that simplified language, the patient will more clearly understand the situation at hand, because patient education really does more than anything else to turn around refusal ideas. So even more so than talking to a physician on the phone or over the radio, just getting them the proper education in words that they will understand. So taking our kind of elitist medical terminology down and using just regular words, just educating them on your assessment, what you've done, what your potential diagnoses are, what your differential diagnoses are, and what treatments we have available to them and how this will help them. Then with that education, we must be sure that the patient is fully informed of the risks and consequences when refusing treatment and or transport. These risk statements to the patient should be as specific as possible and specific to our assessment. For example, telling a patient you're showing signs and symptoms of having a stroke. If you're not diagnosed and treated properly, you risk permanent disability or death. That's pretty straightforward. Using simple terms, everyone knows the term stroke. They know that brain damage, and they can relate to that. And then adding on disability, adding on death if you don't seek treatment, may sway their decision. So at the end of the day, seems like a simple call. Patient refused. But these refusals can be some of the most challenging PCRs that we write and that we document. Because when we're documenting this, before we allow for that refusal, we need to establish that competence, that capacity to refuse. We need to document, are they alert, are they oriented? We need to document that we've informed them and educated them. We need to document every word spoken in that conversation and every moment spent with that patient. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know.